This is Empire Sports Alliance, Unfiltered. No fluff, no filters, just the real side of sports. We're talking athletes, coaches, agents, doctors, executives, the people behind the scenes who actually move the needle. From building careers to surviving the grind to winning off the field. This is where real conversations collide.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Empire Sports Alliance Unfiltered. I'm Ronnie. I'm the wealth guy. Got my co-host Eric, and today we got Nick Faria with Jets X Factor. Been covering the NFL for close to a decade, right, Nick? So
Sure. Yep.
Okay, excellent. Well, we're going to cover, obviously, the draft is around the corner here, so we're going to cover a few things here today. First off, probably start a little bit with your journey in terms of, like, your experience covering the NFL, talking to GMs, looking at, again, draft strategies, etc. Then maybe run through a little bit of a mock draft, what to expect from the upcoming draft, etc. But, why don't we start with you kind of introducing yourself, share with the audience your great, background.
Yeah. So started as an intern back in, I believe it was like 2015, 2016. It's so long ago now, but I was an intern covering the Jets for a blog site. And then I knew, then that I had an interest in football, but what really got me started, I joined AM Metro New York, which is a metro paper in New York City. And they had me actually covering hockey to start. I've had extensive history with the NFL. I consider myself an NFL historian, but that was just me as a fan, not me as a particular reporter outside of the internship. So we started out as a hockey reporter covering the Rangers beat. And the comical side of it was my boss always said, yeah, these stories are good. They're not bad. There's things here to tweak, but felt like something was missing. And the next year, my second year, he said, okay, we're going to transition you to football. We have an opening. You're going to cover the Jets. And within the first week, the viewership spiked to the highest it has been for the paper. It still is to this day. And my boss had looked at the writing and goes, where the hell did this come from? This is perfect. What are we talking about here? So that kind of opened the door of essentially saying, hey, not only can I cover the NFL, but I tend to be pretty good at it. And been covering the Jets now ever since. This is actually going to be my fourth year on said beat. It's going to be a lot of fun as always, but been around the game for a very long time, been able to go to games, watch film, talk to a lot of different people. So I feel like I bridged the gap between football fan and football reporter, being able to talk to people about what's in the mindset of a head coach and it's the mind of a GM, but then also putting in the spin on it where the fan not only will understand, but will be interested in it.
Awesome. Nice. So, what hockey team did you cover when you covered hockey?
Yeah, so I covered the Rangers when I was covering it.
Rangers?
But I am an Islanders fan, so.
I was going to say I'm an Islander fan too, but all right, that's all good. So in terms of tell us a little bit more in terms of from a covering perspective, going back to your gig now, covering the NFL in terms of film study versus interviews and all that stuff. What does a day look like, for you? How do you plan out your week?
Yeah, so it's difficult because I also balance it with a full-time job outside of it. But it's one of those things where, I spend probably about an hour looking through film. At this point, we're looking at prospects, so I'll take a prospect a day, probably go through some different mocks. I got about 4 or 5 stories a day that I work on. And then we get to a point where, come draft day, I have a set of questions that I'm looking to have answered, go to the Jets facility. It all depends. This is kind of the downtime for sports reporters because there's you don't have to go to the team facility. So you kind of are waiting for news to happen. You try to go out and search out the news as well. But it's a great experience because when you got the time, you can really integrate yourself into the NFL business.
How do you make a decision on, all right, you know what? I'm getting this info here. Now I got to put my unique twist to it to try to draw people in. Is it hit and miss? Okay, most people like hearing about this, and this, and I know people don't care about this, or do you create your own angle, and how do you come up with that?
And so it I think that was one of the reasons why my NFL reporting has been unique in a lot of ways because, I'm competing with some of the top people in the country. You're looking at ESPN, New
Yeah.
York Post, Newsday, these massive media conglomerates, and I'm competing with them for views. So I think it's part of who I am as a person. People are able to talk to me, and I'm engaging in a way where they want to hear more about what I have to say, but also understanding what football fans look for. And I think that blend of fan and reporter serves me really, really well because I understand what fans are looking for. I understand the fan that's talking about and worried about the third tight end in the room, or what's the team going to look like at safety or corner, positions that most fans aren't really going to be thinking of. The backup safety or the third safety. But we're going to have a feature on it. We're going to talk to the third safety. We're going to talk to coaches and that kind of mindset. So it's really just having the unique spin, but also being in a position where if you're a fan and you can write, you're in a position where people want to know what you have to say because you're able to do it in a way that isn't really done.
How much is AI helping you or hurting you?
I think it comes and goes. With AI, I always, I say it in job interviews. I say it everywhere I go. It's a tool. It has to be a tool. You have to be able to use it for help and be able, I use it really as an editing software, kind of look forward and say, okay, is this clear? What is this? If there's anything wrong with my grammar, it'll help me correct it. But it can't be the be all end all. I never believe it has to be the be all end all, particularly in journalism, because there are articles that you see are written by AI, and you can clearly tell it's not written by a person, and you can tell it was written by a robot because there's a unique difference between when someone is engaged, someone is passionate about the story they're writing, and when AI is kind of writing and telling you exactly what it is at every single moment. So AI is something everyone has to learn, and everyone better learn it because it's coming and it's not going away anytime soon. But it's one of those things where if you use it as a tool, you can really use it to your advantage.
Okay.
And how do you decide from a story perspective, what's actually, how does it develop in terms of what's the sources like, the timing verification? How does an actual story develop?
Well, so there's different kind of stories, right? So if I'm writing a game recap after a game and I'm talking about, Jets lose 17-10, whatever it is, it's different because I'm going down to a coach. I'm going down here. I'm going down there, talking to players in the locker room, asking questions about what happened in the game, and then looking forward into next week. If we're talking about a feature on a player, it's all about talking to the people around him. I'm going to get the position coach. I want to be able to get the coordinator that's calling the plays for him, those kind of things. So it depends on the actual story. The one thing that I always push is creativity. If everyone's writing the story about the quarterback, no one's going to really be looking at Jets X Factor compared to ESPN or compared to the New York Post. So we have to stand out in a way that's going to help and affect us in terms of viewership. So finding a way to find that balance, finding a way to be able to stand out in our own unique way, I think is why Jets X Factor has had a lot of success and success on my end as well.
So you brought up passion with AI. I understand your true heart is with another team. Does it make it hard for you to write about the Jets and do all that? Are you secretly happy when something happens, or or is it just a job?
So I will say this: the Jets are a unique team for me because the fan base is fantastic. I love everything about the fan base. It's very similar to the team I root for at this point. So those kind of things I think kind of help in that way because the passion just kind of sticks with me. But there's a clear difference, right? If I was told one time by a friend of mine, you can never report and write on the Eagles. You never can because it's too personal for you. It's too personal. Every single time something happens, you won't be able to do it. So I think the Jets are a perfect blend for me because um, they are a team that Philly doesn't really see a lot, maybe once every couple of years, maybe 4 years, and you move forward with that. But it's also a unique blend because I found kind of a niche covering the Jets, understanding this. And I'm always open to new opportunities, but there's never a shortage of passion when it comes to the NFL. I'm a football fan, put it that way. So there's no shortage of passion.
But let me ask you on that end, from a passion perspective, do you see teams where you clearly see a difference in regards to passion from a fan base perspective? When you talk about the Eagles, you talk about the Jets, etc. Any particular team that comes to mind, not to call anybody out, but that you don't necessarily see the same type of passion?
Well, I would love to rail on the Dallas Cowboys because it's just the Dallas Cowboys. But when they're good, everyone wants to talk about them. When they're bad, no one wants to be around. That's number one. But listen, the NFL is such a unique business because the two most marketable teams in the NFL are from two of their smallest markets. You look at the Packers, you look at the Steelers, two of the most storied franchises in NFL history, and they have the most passion. They are two of the most marketable organizations you will ever see. You look at the Patriots. I think that's as fair weather a fan base as you will see in this business. And I grew up in New England. I grew up in around. So I was in the
It
crux.
wasn't always as good.
I was in the crux of the Brady years. For the first 50 years of their existence, though, the Patriots were one of the worst teams in football. 1-15, and what was it, 1990, 1991, whenever it was. They were consistently bad for a very long time, and the fan base was non-existent. There was potential that they would leave for St. Louis at one point when Robert Kraft was when he first was brought in as the owner. So the way that I look at it is there are a lot of fair weather teams, but the beauty of the NFL is the difference of fair weather fan in football and fair weather fan in baseball or basketball or hockey. It's a completely different animal. You're getting sellout crowds with Washington and with Carolina and all these other different teams. But the Washington Wizards can't sell out a stadium. You have these basketball teams that are just so bad that no one wants to go to them. Brooklyn Nets, when they were good, it was great, but now no one wants to go to a game. It's those kind of things that you only see in the NBA, but you also see that difference in the NFL as well.
So from a fan base perspective, now let's geographically, obviously, I'm in Southern California, Eric is over in Phoenix. In terms of, do you see geographically, because we always hear it, right? I grew up on the East Coast, you go to a game, it's windy, it's rain, it's, cold weather, right? You show up anyway. And here it's more like, hey, you know what? I think there's rain on the horizon. We might not. Now, again, they play halfway in the dome. So do you see anything geographically speaking that there's different behavior from people?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's a different style of fan base with the 49ers and the Rams.
Yeah.
You want to talk about fair weather? I think the Rams are a perfect example. They should never have left Los Angeles to begin with and gone to St. Louis. I have a friend of mine who's from the St. Louis area. He was really upset when the Rams left St. Louis to go back to LA. And I said, well, listen, you're talking to the wrong person because I'm the only one that feels they should never have left Los Angeles in the first place. The LA Rams have been a staple of that community for decades. They were a team in the 30s and 40s that were competing for championships. There are moments as well. I know the NFL wants expansion. The Raiders, should they have left Oakland? Of course not. I'm always someone that feels they should never have left Oakland. They are the Oakland Raiders.
Wait, are they Oakland or the L.A. Raiders? Because I grew up in L.A., so if the Rams are L.A., then the Raiders are L.A. also.
Not necessarily, though, because the Raiders are that unique spot where it was in Oakland, then they were in L.A., then they're back to Oakland, and now they're in Vegas. They never should have gone to Vegas. Let's just put it.
How about the Chargers leaving San Diego?
Well, that was actually one that I was going to bring up next. I mean, the Chargers leaving San Diego was criminal. Really, really criminal. They should have. The San Diego was such a unique football town. And it's criminal what's happened to these teams. It just, people can say, oh, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. But the barometer of we want a new stadium, the city won't give us a stadium, I think is ridiculous. You got these billion dollar owners that won't fork over the cash for private land, and I can't stand it. Put it this way: the Rams should have stayed in LA, the Raiders should have stayed in Oakland, and the Chargers should never have left San Diego.
All right, so I'm a Packers fan. So you write about the Jets. What did you write about after you took our two quarterbacks, Brett and Rodgers?
Well, I will say I was a young kid when Favre went to the Jets. I think I was actually in middle school, so that's the first part. So I didn't get any writing done about him. But the unique thing about Aaron Rodgers, and I think most people, covering the team and really following the team, that 2023 Jets squad was going to the playoffs. And I'm a firm believer if Rodgers doesn't tear his Achilles, that's a playoff team. Because you got to look at the roster. They were 7-10. They won 7 games with 4 different quarterbacks starting in the regular season for them. You had Zach Wilson, you had Trevor Siemian. I can't remember who. I believe it was Tim Boyle at one point as well.
Was it Tim Boyle or Chris Streveler? Was that the year?
Streveler was the year prior, a couple of years prior.
Okay.
But think about that: 4 quarterbacks, and you won 7 games. And a lot of these losses were by 1 score. The Raiders, it was by 4. I think they had a game where they didn't score a touch. I think it was like 10-7. They lost 13-7. So it's that Jets team was going to be a playoff team with a healthy Aaron Rodgers leading the way. And it was a testament to the coaching staff that they were able to sort of piece it all together and remain as competitive as they were. And again, they were blown out in some games, but that's going to happen when you have backup quarterbacks starting for you. That's just the reality.
But I mean, Wilson had starting experience, right? I mean, that was like what, 2 years of being a starter.
Yeah, but Zach Wilson is not. He's not an NFL quarterback. Let's call a spade a spade. He's not an NFL quarterback. But kind of the unique side of it is the next year, the expectation is, oh, well, this team is good enough. They should be in the playoffs. But what really sunk them, even with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, was one, people forget that Achilles injuries are really difficult to recover from.
Yeah.
Yep. And sorry, hold on 1 second. I got a call. I needed the So yeah, he was coming off an Achilles injury. It's difficult for for any athlete to come off. You look at what happened with Kobe Bryant, and they also traded away the strength of the team. The strength of the Jets for a very long time was their pass rush, but they got rid of John Franklin Myers, which was a big problem, and he had a great year in Denver. And they also brought in Hassan Reddick, who did not play it down for them until the later part of the season. So the strength of the team being your defensive line, and you have no defensive line, you gutted pretty much the biggest strength, and that's what happened. They win 5 games. A lot of it's because the offense was trying to recover from Rodgers recovering himself, and it never worked out. But again, I say, if Rodgers was healthy in 2023, they're a playoff team. The unfortunate luck of the Jets is that's the problem.
Yeah.
There you go. Can you go into a little bit more in terms of player evaluation and all that stuff, talent, maybe with your conversations with GMs and all that stuff? Obviously, again, the draft is coming up. What are they looking at? How do they go through? And, maybe some of the front offices that you've spoken to in terms of how they have a different approach. What do these approaches look like?
Yeah, it all depends on the 2 different team, right? So when it comes to a team, I make this comparison all the time because I think the Jets should model some of these other top contenders. Philadelphia is obviously a top contender, and I compare it a lot to that. But you look at Howie Roseman, and Roseman's probably the best GM in football. I don't think it's even close. I think there's a lot of good GMs, but when it comes to Roseman, the assets he's able to recover, the ability to win trades when people don't even think that a trade is winnable, or acquiring players. The trade for Dontavian Wicks, I thought was a stroke of genius with everything.
Oh, they just did that, right?
Yeah. And I thought it was a stroke of genius, everything going on with A.J. Brown, because now you have a legitimate, I think, number 2, borderline number 3 wide receiver in that offense. But with Roseman, it's always about best player available, and it's keeping your assets available and willing to be able to move in different things and have different plans ready for your roster every single year. The Jets have been a little different mold. Philadelphia focuses on the quarterback and surrounding the quarterback with talent. And mostly that's because they hire offensive-minded head coaches. The Jets are unique in a way because they want to focus on culture. They feel that culture is the way to turn around wins. And you saw that with the Robert Saleh hiring. You saw that with the Aaron Glenn hiring. And you actually saw that a couple years before that with Todd Bowles and Rex Ryan. To them, it's all about culture, finding culture. But they don't really have an understanding of how to develop a quarterback. There's too much I don't want to say pressure, but there's too much frustration over finding a quarterback. And when you have all that, when you're essentially forcing a quarterback decision to be made every single year, and you're having these unrealistic expectations, this is where you get yourself into trouble. And that's where the Jets have been now for 15 years. Haven't made a playoff game. They haven't finished over 500 in the last 10. So it's a difficult situation for the Jets to be in, but it's a good example of an organization that's, I think, preaching the wrong thing. I think the Jets focusing on culture is never the thing you should focus on. Culture in the NFL changes when you win football games.
Yeah.
You look at, the Packers as a good example in the early 2000s. You had Brett Favre, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and they made all these playoff games and they had all these experiences, but they would lose these mind-numbing playoff games. 2002 to Michael Vick. You go up against McNabb and the Eagles in 2003, and you don't cover Freddie Mitchell on 4th and 26. You lose to Moss in 2004. You throw an interception in the conference title game against the Giants in 07. As much as we want to consider them contenders, they were always mistakes being made in the biggest moments that kept them from competing. But when you have Mike McCarthy brought in, you bring in Aaron Rodgers, there was a championship mindset that I think helped them win that title in 2010. There is no championship mindset for the Jets right now because they don't know how to get there. So I think that's the biggest struggle for the Jets, where they're focusing on the wrong thing. They're not focusing on putting up points, which is what changes games and wins you games and helps develop culture. They're focusing they're trying to skip a line here. They're trying to develop a culture before winning, and it's always the other way around.
Right. So, all right. So you bring up the quarterback aspect. So Ronnie and I were having a conversation earlier with my girlfriend, and I'm gonna throw this out. This was her question. She's a humongous Eagles fan, so obviously I have to represent her team also, which is yours. But why do all the reporters hate Jalen Hurts so much? And then if you were to look at the top 5 QBs in the league right now, are you putting him in that as a top 5? Even though he's won a Super Bowl, he still doesn't get the respect. And
yeah, it's difficult, right? I don't think Jalen's a top 5 quarterback. And objectively, I don't think he's top 5. Do I think he's top 10? Absolutely. Anyone who thinks that Jalen Hurts is not a top 10 quarterback really, to me, is focusing on the wrong thing. Because, again, Dak Prescott has all these numbers. He throws the ball up and down the field all the time. But is he winning football games? Is he the reason the Cowboys are winning games when it matters most? The clutch gene in quarterbacks, I think, is often overlooked because people just want to see the big arm. They want to see everyone throw the ball down the field and say, oh, my God, what a wow throw, what a wow play. But that's not what wins you football games. If it was, Josh Allen would have 3 Super Bowls. Justin Herbert would have 2 Super Bowls. So I look at things a little bit differently than most quarterbacks. First off, the reason why the media is so against Jalen Hurts is because who he is as a person. He is very quiet. He's very to himself. He's not open. He's always giving these random quotes that everyone kind of uses.
Like Rodgers?
Well, nothing like that. I mean, you want to talk about a guy with some interesting quotes. Aaron Rodgers has certainly had him, but he's very private. He's very to himself, and that can turn the media off in a lot of ways if the quarterback's not giving them what they want. The other thing is, in Philadelphia, the only person fans want to see or media members want to see is the backup quarterback. The backup quarterback is the most popular position in Philadelphia at all times because you have the history of Jeff Garcia, you have the history of Nick Foles. Every backup quarterback has had success, so therefore our backup quarterback is better than the starter. It's always a load of crap, but that's just essentially what it is. But I think Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback in this league, and really the only reason why people don't want to give him credit is because the numbers aren't what you would expect. And the way that I see it, I would rather Jalen Hurts winning football games 13-7, where he's not turning the ball over, as opposed to losing 34-29. My quarterback throws for 400 yards, but also turns the ball over twice when it matters most. Josh Allen had 4 turnovers in his loss to Denver in a game that he should have won, and as the best quarterback in the playoff field. Dak Prescott was the number 2 seed in the NFC playoffs when they played Green Bay, and he was down 34-0 before he could blank with 2 turnovers. Give me the quarterback that wins the games at the end of the day and wins them at the most important moments than the quarterback that's going to throw for a lot of yards and throw a couple interceptions and lose the game for the team.
Okay, so in your mind, what defines a good quarterback is not always the stats, but their ability to close the deal, obviously, at the end of the day, and how they do it, and leadership and all that.
Yeah, I mean, look at Tom Brady, right? We call Tom Brady the GOAT of the NFL. If we look at his stats from 2001 to 2006, they're very pedestrian. They're very pedestrian at the quarterback level. Throwing 20-ish touchdowns, close to 10 interceptions every year, over 3,000 yards. He wasn't lighting up the world. And you look at some of the playoff games too. The defense gives up an average of 8 points from 2001 through 2004. He's undefeated in the playoffs, 10-0, thanks in large part to his defense. But he's getting the credit because he's just not making the mistake. And if you're a quarterback that's not making the mistake and the team around you is playing well, you're going to win a lot of football games. And so I don't think that stats are the be-all, end-all. I think it's probably the biggest farce of the modern game where people want to see Drew Brees throw the football up and down the field. But Drew Brees won 1 title. And a large part, that title was given because his defense made the plays. The Colts were going down for the game-tying score. Brett Favre and the Vikings were going in for the game-winning points. A field goal is all they needed. But the defense came through with an interception. That's not Drew Brees putting up 500 yards passing. That's the defense making the plays. So this notion that quarterbacks have to be elite and put up stats, I think is a ridiculous notion because there are quarterbacks in this league that are Hall of Famers because they won. And until winning becomes obsolete in the NFL, until we stop worrying about winning and winning Super Bowls, that's the day I'll probably think that Jalen Hurts isn't a good quarterback. But give me a quarterback that wins over a quarterback that can throw the football 80 yards down the field every single day.
So that's really for you. That's the main, if you want to evaluate a quarterback, is really at the end of the day, is your football team winning? Yes,
win. And again, if things change, it changes the mindset for a lot of these quarterbacks.
Right.
Like, Deshaun Watson had an unbelievable year the year the Houston Texans won 4 games. And then the next year he was traded and all these issues happened with him. But do you think Houston was really, really happy with their standing and how they looked as an organization when Deshaun Watson was putting up 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 8 picks in a year where they won 4 games? Probably not.
So what do you think, in terms of some other, quarterbacks in organizations? If you think about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think Baker Mayfield has played pretty well. What do you think?
I think Baker's played really well, but I also think they've got the wrong coach. Todd Bowles, I think, solid, really good guy, really good guy, good defensive coordinator. The Buccaneers have too much talent to keep going 9-7, 9-8, and winning the division on the last day. It's not good enough when your team is just hovering over 500 and barely winning the division with as much talent as they have.
Awesome.
So with the draft coming up, I haven't dove into it. I'm sure you have more, but it seems like the Packers have given up a lot of guys this year to get draft picks and stuff. What's your opinion on teams getting rid of experienced guys and trying to get new guys who obviously don't have the NFL experience yet? And do you say, okay, it's a rebuilding year, we're going to, chalk it off and then look forward to next year?
I don't think teams really look at that in general. I think it's more of a cap situation. And particularly with the Packers, I think you look at where they are. This is a team that's going to be competing again for a playoff berth. They want to compete for a Super Bowl. But the trade for Micah Parsons changes things. They don't have a first-round pick. They have to be able to accumulate more draft picks later on. So I think the kind of sale that you've seen from Green Bay, I don't think has anything to do with a rebuild. I just think it's the Packers saying, listen, our defense is really good, but we got to pay our people. And the only way that we can pay our stars is if we get more draft picks and younger players on rookie contracts to be able to pay for these guys. That's what it really comes down to. I think, Philly's another example where they've gone all in with this core for 4 years. 4 or 5 years, they have a talented core, and it's worked out. They've won the Super Bowl. They've been to 2, every playoff appearance in every single season. But the reason why you're seeing a sell-off in some ways where they've lost a lot of free agents, potentially trading A.J. Brown, is their cap situation. Eventually the money runs out, and you have to be able to still pay some of your stars to remain competitive and remain in championship contention. And the only way that you can do that is by drafting well. And if you draft well in the early and later rounds, it means everything costs less. So for the Packers, it's very simple. They traded for Micah Parsons. So you need to be able to acquire more draft picks later on to facilitate a younger roster, keep the roster young, but also in that championship mindset.
So what is your opinion on the cap? Because I'm from LA, and hey, the Dodgers, couple World Series. Obviously, that's going to come up in the lockout at the end of this season, but it's done differently. Do you like one way or the other way better?
It depends on so it really just comes down to the sport. If you don't have a cap in the NFL, this would never work because every great player will gravitate towards the top quarterback. And that's just the reality of it. You will see tanking at an unprecedented level than we see in the NFL today. If teams are bad, usually it's about 2 or 3 teams that are really, really bad and they try to tank. Everyone else, though, is trying to compete and win games. In Major League Baseball, you have about 10 teams that are competing for a championship. Everyone else is tanking. Everyone else. And it's ridiculous. And I don't think baseball should go to a salary cap. I know the owners are really going to want to. But I think that's what's unique about baseball is that it all comes down to the ownership. And the other thing is this, if a salary cap is brought into baseball, how is that going to help the Pirates? The Pirates don't want to spend to begin with. The Marlins don't want to spend to begin with. A cap is not going to help them. It's not going to entice them to pay players. All it's going to do is make it easier for other teams to be able to poach some of those players and give players less than probably they're worth. In the NFL, it's a little bit different, though, because you need it or else you're going to see super teams on an NBA type of level.
That makes sense.
Awesome. Well, good. We talked about your journey. We talked about, dealing with, GMs, some salary cap. We're going to step away here for a quick second for our Unfiltered Wacky Stats, episode. So we'll be right back. Well, Eric, here we go with our wacky stats, everything, draft related, as the draft is upon us. So the GOAT, Tom Brady, was picked 199th, so was selected, again, in the 2000 draft. 6 quarterbacks were, picked before him, and Brady ended up winning 7 Super Bowls. So, draft boards are still recovering from that. So
that's crazy.
It is.
All right. Mr. Irrelevant, success stories. So the last pick in the draft, known as Mr. Irrelevant, has produced some surprisingly good players, including Brock Purdy, who went from the last pick in 2022 to leading the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl. So I guess he wasn't so irrelevant after all.
That's impressive, yes. Well, talking about height obsession is actually real when it comes to the draft. So quarterbacks taller than 6'4" are drafted way more often. Yet some of the best QBs ever, like Drew Brees and Russell Wilson, were considered too short. So apparently inches do matter until they don't.
Yeah, we've heard that before.
Sure have.
All right. The draft hat stat. So every first round pick puts on a team hat within seconds. But historically, many of those players are traded within a few years. So some hats barely make it home before the player switches teams.
Holy crap. All right. Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to Nick and talk a little bit more about the actual draft coming up.
All right.
Well, we're back from our, wacky stats here. So, let's talk, a little bit about the upcoming draft here. So in terms of round one, I mean, really all rounds, what are the teams to watch in terms of what do you see? What do you hear about trades, talent, people that, or players that are moving up the board or moving down the board? What do you see? What is kind of like some of the interesting stories that you're currently hearing about?
Yeah, this isn't a dominant draft class. I compare it, I think the 2024 draft class is probably one of the best that I have ever seen. You had two top defensive players fall into the 20s, and not because teams overlooked them, but because there were so many great offensive players. Whereas you had, Terry and Arnold and Quinyon Mitchell. Quinyon's an all-pro, and he fell to 23 simply because everyone else needed offensive stars. It was absolutely incredible what we saw. That's not going to happen this year. The quarterback class is not very good. You've got some good arms, some intriguing prospects, but it's not an elite group. So that changes the conversation a little bit. Then you have, other defensive.
Let me ask you real quick on the quarterback situation, because obviously Mendoza is supposed to be the number one pick for the Raiders, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm reading stories in terms of Ty Simpson moving up the board. All of a sudden now he's being discussed, potentially the Jets being interested at 16, I believe. You think there's any reality to it, or is he still, maybe somewhere second round?
No, I think he'll go in the first round. I still think he's a first round pick, but I don't think the Jets are going to take him. I don't. From my understanding, they are trying to punt that conversation to 2027 with a deeper quarterback class. You think about guys who could be coming out: Dante Moore, Arch Manning, Lenore Sellers, a few other names as well that you can throw to. Julian Sayin in Ohio State, another one. There's a lot of great quarterbacks coming out in 2027, and then even 2028 as well, potentially. But this is not the year to draft a quarterback if you're a quarterback needing team. If you're not able to get Fernando Mendoza, then you're probably best served punting that conversation to next year.
I mean, you could still look at the guy like Nussmeier, right, from LSU in the third round, potentially, or something like you could.
Absolutely. Drew Aller is another example. I think, if he came out last year, he's a top 5 pick. I truly, truly believe that. He was very, very high in a lot of people's boards last year, but then he returned to college. And when he did, he really hurt his NFL draft stock. I thought he would go top 5 this year. I think, probably the ceiling is the 4th round.
Yeah.
So we've interviewed 3 current NFL players, and it kind of seems like when we ask them about the draft process, some of them are like, I did not think this team was going to take me. I didn't spend a lot of time talking to them. I thought this team was going to take me. You're kind of on the other side. So how much do teams let players know where they really are? Or is it just, hey, let's see what's happening. We have our top 10 now, and this is our list.
Yeah, it comes down to different situations. I know, Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey, they had their podcast and they were talking about Kelsey being someone that was always on the Eagles board for a long time. And then same thing with the Chiefs. And you have those different examples, but it really just comes down to the age-old adage. Do you have talent? If you are good enough to play in this league, the NFL will know, and the NFL teams will draft you. And it does not matter about, this and that. I think character is important, but it's not the be-all, end-all. You look at Rob Gronkowski, he slept on the table of his meeting with the Patriots, and they still drafted him in the 2nd round.
Hey, he went to the University of Arizona so...
But he was such an elite prospect.
So, yeah.
Right? He was such an elite prospect that it didn't matter. What talent wins at the end of the day in the NFL. And I think that's where it's a good example of an organization, or just in general with the process. Teams would, they have no problem telling them, hey, you're our guy, you're our guy. But when it comes to it, if it's the right fit, another one can swoop in and make that deal to get him.
So you were kind of saying before we start talking about the quarterback, I think some other positions that you're mentioning, would you potentially see in the first round, any movement there, like any other positions that you think, hey,
I think if you're looking at trades, there's not a lot of teams that are going to be willing to trade up this year. This is not really a talented draft class where people are giving up a lot of assets in order to get their guy. But there's still talent. I think this is a defensive class.
Sorry, defensive class, you said?
Yeah, it's certainly a defensive class. Arguably the top non-quarterback in this draft, Arvell Reese. He's the edge rusher from Ohio State. You could be looking at 4 Ohio State players drafted in the top 10 this year: Carnell Tate, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, and obviously Reese. It's a good year to be an Ohio State Buckeye. Let's just put it that way.
On that end, then, so from a trade perspective, I'm reading stuff like the Titans potentially moving up from 4 to 2 with the Jets. Right? Do you think there's any leg to that?
No, I don't. I think the Jets are going to stay at 2. I think the Jets will probably trade up, but that's probably from 16. I don't see them giving up that second pick.
Do you think they're going to go Bailey or Reese?
I still think they're going to go Reese. I know there's more people that have been
versatility.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like, oh, they love Bailey. It's going to be Bailey. Yeah. But these are the same people that said it was going to be Brock Bowers 2 years ago, and they ended up choosing Olu Fashanu.
So you think they're going to move though from 16 down to what, to get a receiver potentially?
Yeah, I think they're going to try to trade up for Tate.
Oh, okay, good. What other teams are there to watch where it's just like, hey, they're going to make a move? I think they're
Dallas, definitely Dallas. They've got the 2 first-round picks, and Jerry needs to put up a winner here, and that defense was terrible. I think they'll trade up, and I think they really, really want David Bailey. The question is, will they be able to get him?
Yeah. Would that be a team to call the Jets for, say, hey, you move up to 2?
I think that's certainly the question. But I don't think the Jets going to be willing to to make that kind of deal because you have the ability to get the best non-quarterback in the class. And I don't see that happening at this point.
Okay.
You're breaking his hope for this season.
Oh, no. In terms of, like, obviously that would be a great for that scheme in terms of, obviously with Jermaine Johnson going to the, to the Titans, I think, having an Arvell Reese getting the number 2 receiver, I think wouldn't be a bad deal. Since we're on the Jets, what about in terms of, obviously they have draft capital in the second round as well. Do you see them moving back into the first round potentially or no?
It's difficult, right? If they're trading up to go into the top 10 again, to take a receiver, you're going to have to give up a second-round pick. Yep. If you're giving up a second-round pick, well, that gives you less assets to move back into the first round this year. I don't think this is the draft class to do that for. I really, really don't. This is next year. They have 3 first-round picks. Yep. I can see that happening. But for when it comes down to this kind of conversation, I have a very hard time believing that they'll be willing to come up again in order to make that happen if they're already going to try to trade up once in the first round.
Okay. What other teams? We mentioned Dallas, mentioned the Jets. What else do you see?
There's not many other teams. That's the thing, guys. It's this isn't really the class for trade ups. I mean, Philadelphia is always a danger, when it comes to draft trades. You can never say no when it comes to Howie Roseman, but you look at this draft. This is not a deep class of edge rushers. It's not a deep class of a lot of spots. This is, there's a lot of good players, but are they elite? Or is this the elite of the elite? That's not what this draft class is. I just don't see a situation. I think there are more teams right now trying to trade down. Arizona, Cleveland, Washington, Kansas City. Maybe the Jets as well. They could be in both corners. This is just, it's not the class where teams are going to be like, oh, we need to trade up for this guy because this is a canvas prospect. I think there's maybe 5 of them in this draft, and these guys are all going to go very, very quick.
How many times have you sat back and looked at past predictions, and how many classes did the top guys underperform and the last guys overperformed? I mean, Tom Brady went late, right? and look at his career and everything. And there are other guys like that. Have you do the stats kind of even out, or no, 80% of the guys we predicted that are going to be top guys actually do perform and are top guys?
Yeah, it's always it really comes down to a coin flip. You have some players in the first round that are just immediate producers right away. Look at the 2021 draft class of receivers. You had, Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, who was the other one? Jalen Waddle. First round, and they've played like it. But then you also have Amon-Ra St. Brown from that class that has been fantastic as well. You look at 2020 as another example. 3 receivers were taken before Justin Jefferson, and they were all first-round picks. But you had Jerry Jeudy, you had CeeDee Lamb, you had Henry Ruggs was another one, Jalen Reagor, who was a bust. But then it was Justin Jefferson.
That was your guy, right?
Sorry?
There was an Eagle.
We don't even talk about Jalen Reagor, but that's besides the point. But Justin Jefferson was the best receiver of that class, and he was 4th, 5th, 5th one taken. So it really is a coin flip in a lot of cases. It has a lot to do with luck and a lot to do with where certain players are taken. But there's always going to be the late round steal. There's always going to be the Puka Nakuas of the world that just come out of nowhere and dominate. And other times they're going to be players in the 4th, 5th round that never see the field. And it really is just a crapshoot at times.
Got a couple of guys there, day 2, day 3, where you're like, okay, that's going to be a steal if that person's still around. Got a few?
Yeah, I really like Aller. I really do. If he goes to the right situation, I think he can be a really good NFL quarterback.
So you said ceiling might be like what, a 4th pick, 4th rounder?
Yeah, I think the ceiling is a 4th rounder.
Okay.
It's one of those things where it depends on where he's drafted. If he's drafted to a team with a good system, a good quarterback coach, a good play caller, I think he could do some really good things.
What do you think the Chiefs are going to do this year? I mean, last year didn't go the way they wanted, clearly. Do you think they're going to scramble, or they just had a bad year?
I think they just had a bad year. I think they'll win the division next year. They're the Chiefs. It's Andy Reid. It's Patrick Mahomes. They're older. It's a problem. Something they'll certainly have to address. But until Andy Reid loses a step in play calling, that they're going to be competitive.
Actually, staying on the Chiefs, what do you think in terms of drafting the tight end Sadiq out of Oregon in terms of replacing Kelsey? Any leg to that?
It would make sense, but I think Kansas City's a team that may want to trade down, pick up some more draft picks, and see what they can do there. They may want to trade
some
down.
depth.
Yeah, and they also may want to take a cornerback, offensive line. They got a lot of needs on that roster they still have to address.
What do you see the biggest need? Do you see offensive line?
Always offensive line. You got to protect your quarterback.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other particular players that you see, as the Love out of Notre Dame? Do you think you read stuff, right? You hear all kinds of rumors. Some of them true, some of them not true at all. But any chance that the Titans would make a move for him to get him?
I think the Titans or the Giants. Yeah, Titans or Giants. It'll be one of those two.
Oh, Giants. Replacing Barkley finally.
Yeah,
they gave up to you.
Giants are always a crapshoot, man. Always are.
Yeah.
Well, the Packers need to pick up another quarterback now.
Yes. I'm sorry, you said corner or quarterback?
Quarter.
Yeah.
Our backup's gone, so we need a trade.
Well, you talk close, but
mid-round, late round, there's your backup.
Who's their backup? Who's your backup, Eric, currently?
Well, I don't know who that one is.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you got Jordan Law, so from that perspective, but what do you see besides Downs at the safety position? And we just had a safety on a few days ago. Where do you see that? Is that a deep class there?
It's a good class. I mean, you have Cinnamon, the kid from Oregon, that safety as well from Toledo, Warren. This is a good crux of talent.
And who would you overall say, from a school perspective, looking at college, in terms of produces really real NFL like? And obviously, I mean, you see the Alabamas, you see the Ohio States. Is there any particular college that you see like, hey, traditionally they put out good players, just because they might, follow a pro style type of approach, whatnot. What do you see on that end?
Yeah, you got to look at Georgia, right? Yeah, with the Bulldogs, everything that they've been able to do. I think Toledo for players in the secondary, Illinois players in the secondary that have been really, really good. It depends on the team, depends on the position. You'll always want the guys from Iowa and Notre Dame if they're offensive linemen, because they're just such great players. But yeah, it really just comes down to the position, also comes down to the team as well.
Cool. Who's going to be the big winner of the overall draft when it's all said and done? Who do you think is going to come away?
I think the Jets could be big winners, man. Them and the Raiders. The Raiders are going to have a lot of picks to work with. And if they get their quarterback, they get it right, that team can certainly be competitive.
I mean, there's no question for that. Mendoza's the pick, right? I mean,
but then what happens after? You're going to go receiver. You're going to go offensive line. There's a lot of different ways.
They're just going to center, right? With was it Lindenbaum out of from the Ravens? I don't know. Do you see any left tackles that are worth taking high or no?
You have the kid Proctor, the project out of Georgia. He'll probably go first round. Freeling. The Arizona kid as well, I think, is really good. He's got the versatility. It changes day by day. Offensive linemen this year, it's not the deepest class, so we'll see.
Gotcha. Well, Eric, I know you have, your final questions here.
I do. All right. So this is our walk-off 10. So true, false, or one-word answers, all right?
Oh, good.
All right, true, false. Teams already know their top pick. They're just pretending to debate for TV drama.
False. Majority of them are still going through the process.
All right. One word, most unpredictable team in this draft.
Jets. They could go up, they could go down.
All right. True or false? The draft board is 50% analytics and 50% vibes.
False.
Okay.
Never vibes.
All right. True, false. Mock drafts are obsolete 5 minutes after they're published.
True.
True, false. Someone in the war room always pounds the table dramatically.
It's an over-exaggeration. No, but it's not like there are people that are like, this is the guy we need.
All right, one word. Position that always gets overdrafted.
That's a good one. Cornerback.
Okay. True, false. A surprise pick is guaranteed every year.
Always.
Yep. Most fun team to watch draft.
Raiders. Always the Raiders.
Shit show.
Good God.
All right. True, false. The best draft value usually comes after pick 100.
False.
Okay. One word, sleeper pick that could shock everyone.
Philadelphia and Jordan Tyson.
All right.
ASU?
All right. Here's a bonus one, okay? Better draft snack, wings or pizza?
Wings. Always wings.
Hey, I got a bonus question of my own. You just quickly said the Raiders in terms of most surprising. Why is that?
They're always surprising. They drafted Henry Ruggs over CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. They drafted Cleveland Farrell. It's just
was that the offensive lineman?
No, the defensive lineman, the edge rusher.
Oh, D-line. Okay, yeah. Good.
They're always a crapshoot. They always happen.
Oh, it's fun though, right? So that's good.
That's the thing.
Hey, it helps everyone else. And it just adds more steam to their fan base, right?
Oh yeah.
We have plenty of that. So,
Yeah.
hey, this has been great, Nick. Again, we had players, we had, college pros, et cetera. This is first time we had somebody that, again, actively covers team from a media perspective, et cetera. So certainly appreciate the time. And, this has been great. Again, and the insight, of course. This is great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Thank you.